Welcome guys, welcome back to another video of Minko's Corner. Welcome back, my name is Minkoy. I'm sorry guys, disclaimer, I already did like half the reaction to Aurelian part 3 and there was a problem, the video stopped in the middle, so I'm gonna have to edit it out, so it might come out tomorrow, maybe the day after that, alright? Today I'm gonna be reacting to the Anglosphere is inevitable. I don't know anything about this. I know, listen, I know about Kanzik, the alliance between Canada, UK, New Zealand, and Australia, but I don't know why the US in this case is magnified. So we'll see. Yeah, I hope you like my reaction. If you do, leave a like. Let's go ahead, guys.
Is inevitable. As you might have been able to tell from some of my more in-depth videos on the subject and some of the memes that have been going around, I'm very optimistic of my more in-depth videos on the subject and some of the
Average new Turkish Empire fan. Average
memes that have been going around. I'm very optimistic of Britain and the greater English-speaking world's future. Whether we're speaking of Kanzik, a closer Imperial Union-style state, or simply a tighter friendship between Britain, the Commonwealths, and the United States. And I've often heard hesitation to lump the US into this Anglosphere grouping, largely on account of its almost certain domineering role in said group. However, the US is undoubtedly an essential part of Britain and the Commonwealth strategy for a long-term success. And it would tremendously...
You know what might happen? This is my prediction. I believe that in the future, the US will withdraw itself from Europe. I personally believe that. I don't know if they're going to withdraw themselves from NATO, but I think they're going to withdraw themselves from European affairs. And this is just my perspective on things. I think they're going to come back because they've left Afghanistan. I don't know if maybe the US is going to take a more isolationist stand in the decades to come. We'll see. But I think it would be possible for an alliance between UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the US, like all the basically the former British colonies, to make an alliance between themselves. That could work truly because the alliance would span the whole globe, and it could really lead towards containing China, at least in the Pacific. So we'll see.
benefit them to keep the US as their foremost partner. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We all know of the tremendous heights Britain once reached. The age of the globe's...
Look at this. Look at this, man. Now you have what? Fish and chips and a queen? You had all this. All of this. Which is insane just to look at it. All of this was the British Empire. And now you have Barbados who's like, bitch, we don't need a queen anymore. The disrespect. Insane. If you're British, be ashamed. Look at this. Look. You had a corridor from Egypt all the way to South Africa. You had India, you had Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and you had Guinea. Whatever. You had all this. All this. You had the oil, and now, nothing. You have, what, Gibraltar?
Spanning empire. Today, Britain retains disunited fragments of that in the form of its settler colonies like Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, whose economies, populations, cultures, and standards of living are nearly identical, sharing a singular root, but now standing largely separated from one another across 3 continents. The separation of Britain from the European Union has opened the door and highlighted the need to forge closer and dependable partnerships with compatible states. Alone, Britain stands isolated on the continent and highly vulnerable if ever the continental Europeans were to become hostile either economically or militarily.
If that happens.
In Oceania, Australia and New Zealand find themselves increasingly overshadowed by the economic and military giant of China, not to mention the rising Indonesia even closer by. Since the Cold War, the United States has taken up a valuable...
Indonesia is one of those countries that nobody really talks about, but it's small islands and all that. There's like 200 million people in Indonesia, which is insane. They have a strong economy, I believe. I might be wrong, but if you have 200 million, you must have a somewhat strong economy. I don't know if Europe is gonna turn on the United Kingdom. I believe over the next few decades, the world will get more and more divided between China and the West. Now, I wonder which countries China will be able to get as her allies because China doesn't have that many allies. When you think about it, who's an ally of China? Russia, maybe. Maybe Russia, maybe all the other, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, all those, Afghanistan, Pakistan, but they're weak allies. All things considered. North Korea is more of a liability. You know, um, maybe China's way to expand in terms of alliances, in terms of a sphere of influence puppets, is to invest as they're doing heavily in a poor nation or poor continent, which is in this case Africa. Uh, but yeah, they don't like they're very powerful economically, but they don't have that many allies. But they might turn allies to their side with the Belt and Road project because if it brings so much connection, interconnectivity, and trade agreements between China and Turkey and maybe the Eastern Bloc, maybe Germany. Germany is really going towards the Chinese side of things. Italy, we'll see.
Role as a defense and trade partner to this pair of Commonwealth nations. However, a desire to not become overly dependent upon the US, whose population, culture, and economy was both notably distinct and domineering, meant this alliance could only go so far. A similar case exists for Canada, though to a lesser degree. Its proximity to the United States has caused it to become overshadowed by its richer, stronger, and more densely populated southern neighbor. While American culture is certainly more compatible with Canadian culture than that of Australia, Canadian governing traditions, economics, and lifestyles are still far closer to those of Britain, Australia, and New Zealand than to the United States, where these matters alone can vary greatly from state to state. Clearly, the breakup of the empire has left its surviving fragments as lesser pieces of a once greater whole, and
Yeah.
even if only on a small scale, each country recognizes this and has attempted to recapture some of the old.
I wonder if I'm sorry I'm pausing, guys, but it's a short video. I want to give my thoughts. I wonder if things would have been better if the British Empire somehow survived. Would it have been better? I mean, it would have been better for Britain, but would it have been better for the other nations? Because as much people want to give flack to the British Empire, to empires in general, the British Empire, all things considered, things could have been worse. So then the question becomes: was it a good thing that Britain was able to colonize those nations? Did they leave better? Was their impact more positive than negative? I don't know. That's for people from those nations to answer. I don't know.
Strengths they once held as a union, be it through the establishing of joint intelligence sharing networks, collaborating on military matters, and pursuing closer trade relationships with one another. Since Britain left the EU, these efforts appear to have accelerated and may, within our lifetimes, produce something close to a revitalized British Empire or a new Anglo-Union, of which Canada is almost certain to become the central hub for, as
Yeah.
it alone can easily interact with Australia and New Zealand on one coast while interacting with Britain on the opposite coast. A united Anglosphere would stand as the largest country on the planet, one rich in resources, industry, and technology. Its economy would be the third or fourth largest in the world, behind the US, China, and the EU if you were to include them as a single economic unit. Its population would rank within the global top 10 and could be expected to rise significantly alongside its GDP. The United States has long been a part of the international collaborative efforts between the Anglosphere countries, and while it's unlikely to officially join such a union, there's no doubt a partnership will exist between the AS and US as a natural continuation of the long-held special relationship first established during the Great Wars. The US is clearly demonstrating exhaustion as the sole global superpower and evidently lacks confidence in China or Russia to fill that role, while the EU has thus far lacked tremendous interest in anything outside of regional politics. Thus, who better to alleviate that strain than the original global hegemon of Britain and its commonwealths? Even if the Anglosphere doesn't fully replace the United States as the sole global superpower, its multi-continental presence almost guarantees that it will play a major role in the global balance of power, and its tremendous wealth, population, size, and existing nuclear arsenal assure it the title of a superpower existing among others.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're gonna have nukes because of the UK. Um, I don't know. I think it's a good thing if those countries unify under a single banner, like a NATO type alliance, except militarily, economically, and all that. I think all things considered, not only is it largely positively received in all nations, but also I believe it will give all the Canada, U.S., UK, and Australia, and New Zealand more leverage on the international geopolitics because if you're a small nation like UK, yes, you might have nuclear power, but how much can you really you know push your interests out there into the geopolitics? Maybe in Europe, yes, maybe in Africa, but internationally, where it truly matters, how much can you really, how much of a say do you truly have? I don't know. But if you put them all together, the biggest country on earth in terms of landmass, with nukes, 140 million people, one of the third or fourth largest economies, it could be truly huge for all parties included. So yeah, guys, tell me what you think in the comments. Give a like, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. See you.